Welcome to My Zone Online School. My name is Ismail Topoli, and also welcome to you, Clarice. Boys and girls, please remember, as usual, we always make sure that we sanitize our hands, all right? Make sure you do it very thoroughly, okay? And you also make sure that you respect the social distance. And last but not least, make sure that you always put on your mask. All right, let's start. Today's lesson is going to be about division. All right, now, as I said that we are going to do the topic of division, there are different algorithms, okay, that you can use, or let me say how to express a division algorithm. The first one is, now this is 35 divided by 7. Now the first one is the one that you commonly know. And as it says there in the book, can just show you. It says there 35 divided by 7. Most of you have met that one before. Now the next one is also 35 divided by 7. 35 divided by 7. But then you will notice that it looks like a common fraction. And that is also one of the things that we are going to discuss today. So do not find it strange that a common fraction also speaks about division. Then the last expression that we have is where we have a division bracket, whereby the number you are dividing is in the bracket and the number that you are using to divide is outside of the bracket. And as I said, we are going to use that approach because that is what we normally would use when we are dividing in a long division method. Okay. Now, let's see. Quickly come with me on the chalkboard. Here we have 24 divided by 4 is equals to 6. Now, depending on the position of these numbers, they have different names. All right. Now, in this case, this 24 is called your dividend. Can you see that? Because this is the number that you are dividing. While 4, on the other hand, is called your divisor. Because that is the number that you are using to divide. All right? And then lastly, we have what we call your quotient. Okay? It's Q-U-O. Quotient. All right? So, now, let's see how different it is than the one that is in your book. Let's quickly look at the one in your book. Why is this important? Is because notice the positions have changed. Can you see that? For example, your 4, which is on the outside, all right, will be your divisor. Okay? And this time around, 24 is your dividend. And then the answer you get after dividing, which is obviously 6, will be called your quotient. Are we together? So I might be using these words during the course of the presentation, so make sure that you do not get confused. Okay, let's get to it. Let's go to the next page. Okay, now Here we have 3,934 divided by 7. Now we are going to use a long division method to explain how do we get to this answer. Okay. Now, let's quickly look on the chalkboard. I am dividing with the number 7. To make things easier for you and I, and of course also Clarice, I made the multiples of 7 on the side. All right. For example, it's easy for me to pick up that 7 goes into 21 3 times. Are we together? Okay. Now let's get to it. So how do I divide 3,934 by 7? We simply do it like this. We say, how many times does 7 go into 3? It can't. How many times does it go into 39? Well, Clarice, you have to help me here. Where is 39 on the chalkboard?
It's not there, so then we must go between 42 and 35.
Oh, good. So Clarice is saying that it's somewhere between 35 and 42. So it's somewhere here, isn't it? So definitely 39 doesn't go in 6 times. It can only go in 5 times. So this 5 is what we will write here. Okay. Next step is to do the following. You will say 5 times 7 will give me 35. Which is also easy to see. Why? Because it shows you 5, 35. I made it easy for you. All right. Now, once you are done with this, make sure you put your subtraction sign there. Why is that important? Because you are going to subtract this number with this number. Okay? So now we're going to say 39 minus 35. Okay, let's do that step by step. So we say 9 minus 5 will give me 4. 3 minus 3 will give me nothing, so we can just make a dot. And then lastly, we drop the 3. Why do I say lastly? Simply because that is like one round. All right? Starting from here, we restart the whole process again. What do I mean? Now we say 7 goes into 43. How many times? Clarice, help me again. Where is 33? 43.
Between 49 and 42.
Okay, good. It's somewhere here, right? So it will go in, how many times, Clarice?
6 times.
It will go in 6 times. So we will write 6 above. And then our next step, we will say 6 times 7 will give us how much?
42.
Definitely will give us 42. So that 42 I write below here. And then I subtract these two numbers. Now I have 43 minus 42, which will give me 1. Because 3 minus 2 is just 1, and 4 minus 4 will give me nothing. And then I drop my next number, which is 4, and now it is 14. The next step, I will then say, okay, how many times does 7 goes into 14? Where's 14? Clarice? It's exactly here, right? In other words, it's exactly 2. So it will go in 2 times. So then I will say 2 times 7 will give me 14. I will then say 14 minus 14 will give me 0. So then I'm done. But the question is, which one is my final answer? This is my final answer, which is 562. Are we together? All right. Let's do the next example. Notice that this time we were using only one number. This time we will use 2 digits. All right? Okay, let's get to it. Again, notice that I already made my multiples of 12 to make things easier for me. Okay? So I will then start off. How many times does 12 goes into 4? It can't. How many times does 12 goes into 47? Where is 47, Clarice?
Between 60 and 48.
Between 36 and 48, somewhere here. Am I right? Yes. Okay, so in other words, it will go in how many times?
3 times.
It will go in 3 times. So I will then say 3 times 12 will give me 36. Okay, I subtract these 2 numbers. Then I say 7 minus 6 will give me 1. 4 minus 3 will give me 1. And then lastly, make sure you always drop your next number. And now we have 114. Are we together? All right, so next question. How many times does 12 goes into 14? So 114, where will that be, Clarice?
Between 108 and 120.
Yes. So somewhere here. So it will go in 9 times. All right, then I will say 9 times 12. It's easy to see because it already shows us there. It's 108. Now I subtract these 2 numbers. I will then say 4 minus 8. I can't. I'll go ask here. Becomes 14. 14 minus 8 will give me 6. 0 minus 0 is 0. 0 minus 1 minus 1 is also 0. So if that is the case, then just turn them into dots, because when we are working with whole numbers, we don't need zeros in front. All right. The next step, we drop the 0, and then it's now 60. Okay. Now then we start off with our next round again. We say 12 goes into 60 how many times, Clarice?
5 times.
It's exactly 5 times, because there is a 60. All right. So it will be 5. Then I will say 5 goes into 12. Sorry, 5 times 12 will give me 60. Then I subtract the 2. 60 minus 60 will give me 0. So my final answer is 395. All right. Now, the next question you probably would like to ask is, but sir, what if there is a remainder? You want to know? Stay tuned. All right, so let's see. What do you do when a number or your answer requires you to have a remainder? What do you do with that remainder? How do you treat it? There are 2 ways how you can treat your remainder. Number 1, you can write it as a common fraction. And secondly, you can write it as a decimal fraction. Okay. Now, in front of me, I have a number that I need to divide, which is 431 divided by 8. We're first going to divide, and then we will discuss about how you are what you will do with your remainder. Okay, let's get to it. I say 8 goes into 43. 43, okay, first of all, you know that it cannot go into 4, so we focus on 43. Okay, so Clarice, help me again. Where is 43?
Between 40 and 48.
Between 40 and 48. So somewhere here. So it will go in 5 times. Am I right? All right, Clarice is agreeing with me. So then I will say 5 times 8 will give me 40. Okay, then we say 3 minus 0 will give me 3. And then 4 minus 4 will give me nothing. And then we drop the 1. So then it becomes 31. Then I will say 8 goes into 31. Where will 31 be, Clarice?
Between 24 and 36.
Between 24 and 36. So somewhere there. Am I right? Yes, I am right. Or we are right. Okay. So it will go in 3 times. So then I will say 3 times 8 will give me, see, 24. Then I subtract these 2. From here, I will then say 1 minus 4 I can't. Then I will have to go ask here. So then 11 minus 4 will give me how much? 7. Okay? And then 2 minus 2 will give me 0. Now, notice one thing. There's no number to drop. Okay? So that is your remainder. Now the question, what do you do with your remainder? Right? Now, normally you will do something like this. You make a letter R, which stands for remainder, and then you write the 7 there. But how do you write that number or that answer with a common fraction? In other words, where your remainder is expressed as a common fraction. Well, that is easy. I want you to have this concept. Remember that this 7 is not divided. It was supposed to be divided. And if you can remember in the beginning of the lesson, there was a time when one of the expression of a division looked like a common fraction. All right. For example, if I had to say 3 divided by 4, it will look like this. Are we together? So, like I said, this 7 was supposed to be divided by 8. So how will it look like? It will look like this. 7 divided by 8. But you don't leave it there. Why? Because you cannot forget your wholes. So then I will write 53. So, in other words, my whole number stays the same. But then what I do, I make sure that my remainder, I write it as my numerator. And then my divisor, I write it as my denominator. Are we together? Okay. Let's move over to the second example. This time around, before I give you the hint, let me erase this for now. I will start with the same process again. I say 8 goes into 43. If you can remember, it was still 5 times. Then I will say 5 times 8 will give me 40. Then I say 3 minus 0 will give me 3. 4 minus 4 is nothing. And then I make sure I drop my 1. All right? I hope this looks familiar because it's just exactly as the previous example up until now. But I want you to follow because there is going to be a difference. All right? Then I say 8 goes into 31. 31, remember, it's somewhere there. So it will be 3 times. Then I say 3 times 8 will give me 24. Okay? And then from here I'll say 1 minus 4 I can't. Then 11 minus 4 will give me 7. 2 minus 2 will give me 1. Very much the same as what we did up until here. But now this time around, we are going to write our answer or our remainder as a decimal fraction. Now, in the beginning, or in the previous example, we wrote it as a common fraction, and now we are going to write it as a decimal fraction. So, what do you do then? All right, you create what we call placeholders. Right? Placeholders. Normally, you can create 3 placeholders. Okay? You don't need to use more than that. All right? So let's create 3 placeholders. Now, also very important to mention is this. Once you created a placeholder like this one, you make sure you put a decimal point here. Very important. All right? So the moment you are done with these whole numbers, yes, you are done dividing these whole numbers, you make sure that you put a decimal point. So all the answers that you are going to get here must fall behind this decimal point. Okay, now let's get to it. So I will drop my 0, my first whole number, sorry, not whole number, but placeholder. Okay, and now we have 70. I will then say 8 goes into 70. Clarice, what do you think? Where will 70 be?
Between 72 and 64.
All right, between 72 and 64, which is there. Okay, so it will go in 8 times. I will then say 8 times 8 will give me 64. I will then say 0 minus 4. I can't. I'm going to ask here. Then I say 10 minus 4 will give me 6. All right. 6 minus 6 is nothing. Next, I drop my next placeholder. All right. I drop my next placeholder. I will then ask myself, how many times does 8 goes into 60? So where will 60 be, Clarice?
Between 64 and 56.
Between 64 and 56. So it will go in 7 times. Then I will then say 7 times 8 will give me 56. 56. All right. Now, I will then say 0 minus 6, I can't. Then I'm going to ask here. Then I say 10 minus 6 will give me 4. 5 minus 5, I can't. 5 minus 5 is just 0. Next, I will drop my next placeholder, which is 0. And now I will have 40. So 8 goes into 40 how many times? Clarice?
5 times.
Okay, exactly 5 times. All right. So I will then say 5 times 8 will give me 40. Then I subtract the 2. So 40 minus 40 will just give me 0. And boys and girls, my final answer will be 53.875. Please notice that I'm reading the numbers behind the point, behind the decimal point, one by one. You do not say 53.875. That is wrong. You read it as 53.875. All right. Now, let's see. Let's move over to our next stage, which is our activity. Stay tuned. Now, let's see how we are going to tackle our activity. Now, if you look at our activity, there's something like this. For example, it will say 23 divided by 4 is equals 5 remainder 3. Okay, now, please, I want you to remember what I said in the beginning, okay? Your focus point in this case is these two numbers. It's 4, which is your divisor, and your remainder. Okay, now, we are going to write the answer in the form of a common fraction and also in the form of a decimal fraction, which is supposed to be quite easy, especially when it comes to writing it as a common fraction. Okay, now, how do I write this answer as a common fraction? Very easy. First of all, 5. Remember, your answer is 5, which is your whole number, and that is obvious. So I will write 5. Now, as I mentioned previously before, your remainder will always be your numerator, and then your divisor will always be your denominator. And that's basically it. So to write it as a common fraction is very easy. You just focus on your remainder and your divisor. And then you write the two as a common fraction. Okay, now the next part. How do I write the same as a decimal fraction? As I mentioned before, or how I showed you before, you divide, right? If you go back to this common fraction answer, this simply means 3 divided by 4. Guess what it means? So we will use this part. In other words, we are going to use division. We are going to we are going to divide our numerator with our denominator so that we can find out what our answer will be. In other words, we're going to discover how we write our answer as a decimal fraction. Okay, let's get to it. So here I have 4, as you can see, is on the outside, and then I wrote 3 on the inside of the division bracket. You'll also notice that I made a decimal point here and there. Why did I do that? Because I wanted to separate my whole numbers from my decimal fraction. In other words, the numbers behind your decimal point. As I mentioned before, try to keep it at 3 placeholders, right? 3 will be enough. And if there are too many, well, then we can make adjustments later as I'm going to show you. Okay, so I now will say 4 goes into 3, while 3 is here. All right? So it will go in 0 times. So I will then write 0. Then I will say 0 times 4 will give me 0. And then I subtract 3 minus 0 will give me 3. And then I will drop the 0. Or let me say the placeholder. And then now I end up with 30. Okay. Next, I will then say 4 goes into 30. 30 is somewhere there. So it will go in 7 times. And then I will say 7 times 4 will give me 28. I subtract the 2. I will then say 0 minus 8 I can't. So I'm going to ask. So, and then 10 minus 8 will give me 2. 2 minus 2, 0. I will then drop the next placeholder, which is 20. 4 goes into 20, it will go in 5 times. I say 5 times 4 will give me 20. Okay? And then from here, I will say 20 minus 20 will give me nothing. Now, notice there is nothing, there's no remainder here. Have you noticed? So in this case, there is no necessity to bring down the 0. So you keep it like that. So, in other words, 3/4 or 3/4 is the same as 0.75. All right. But now, we need to focus here. How then do I write this whole answer as a decimal fraction, keeping in mind that our whole was 5? Well, what do? You take your final answer, which was 0.75, okay? All right? And you add it with your whole. Here. Now, it might look strange that I'm writing it from on this side and not there. Why? Because remember, this is a unit. Okay? If we have to talk about place value. Okay? This is a unit. And this is a tenth. Or sometimes it's written as a T. And then that is a, not 10, but tenth with a TH at the end. Alright? And then that is 100. Just for the sake of, but to make things clear, let me make it clearer for you. A tenth is like this and 100 is like this. Okay. Now, 5 on the other hand, this is a unit. Notice that I deliberately wrote it like this so that my units can be in alignment. In other words, you don't want to write your unit there and you want to add your unit with your tenth. It will not make sense. Okay? So always make sure that when you are adding your place values, your numbers are at the right place values. Okay, now I can put here placeholders. Then I will then say 5 plus 0 will give me 5. 7 minus 0 will give me 7. And then 0 minus 5 will give me 5. Okay. Now, I want you to notice one thing. Notice that my whole number, which is 5, is the same for both. There is no change in it. All right? So your whole numbers does not change. The other thing, where's the difference? Is here. 3/4 is 0.75, which is shown to you there. Okay? So I trust I made things easier for you, and by that you'll be able to do the activity. Okay, now let's get back to our book on page 13. Okay, now in that activity it says, below are final answers of 5 learners. Rewrite their answer by writing the remainders as a common fraction and as a decimal fraction. In other words, the same way how I just did it for you now. All right? The last example that I gave you, that's exactly the same work that you're going to do. Okay? And if you need more space for that, you can do your calculation on a piece of paper and write in the final answer in the block. Okay, let's go to the next page. On page 14, it says, number 2, calculate the following. Show your calculations. Write the remainder as a common fraction and as a decimal fraction where applicable. In other words, it's not all the answers that will have a remainder, but whenever you find an answer that has a remainder, make sure that you write it as a common fraction and you also write it as a decimal fraction. All right, boys and girls, I believe in you that you'll be able to do your best, and not only to do your best, but to get it correct. So good luck and all the best. All right, I hope that you have enjoyed that lesson and also that you have learned a lot. So just so you remember always, I will not forget reminding you that make sure that you always sanitize your hands. All right, can you see? That's what Clarice and I are doing. Okay, make sure that you always observe your social distance. Okay, and then lastly, remember, always put on your mask. Okay. Until next time, goodbye.
Hi everyone, I'm back. And if you are scared of what you read on social media, talk to your parents and ask them the questions. They know everything. Until next time, bye!